That had come from, I believe, Marty's first meeting with Grey Horse as a community. There were 250 people from Grey Horse who showed up to this dinner to speak about just some of their concerns with the film. And it was Margie Burkhart, Molly's granddaughter, who pressed that point. Like, you have to remember in telling this that Ernest and Molly were in love. They loved each other. And there was a while there where, you know, you can say that, but then how do you etch it out for film? How do you find what the little, you know, what the chemistry would be? A lot of it came from kind of the evidence of what we were hearing about how their children were. Both Cowboy and Lizzie were known for being very fun-loving, hosting people, having parties a lot, very close to each other. We kind of found maybe Ernest Molly dynamic in the way that their parents' personalities may have shaped who they were. How a Cowboy would like getting a rise out of Lizzie, and Lizzie would just, oh, Cowboy. So we figured there was probably that dynamic there a bit. And early on, we had shot it a number of ways because we weren't really sure how we were going to solve what was actually happening behind closed doors. Because there's also, you know, people have a different face when they're out of their homes. So what was happening in this marriage where nobody could see. But some of the scenes we were improvising 5 or 6 different ways, or not improvising, just altering what was on the page with different levels of like suspicion on Molly's part, of complicity on Ernest's part, of love on both parts. Because there was a mutual benefit, and a lot of people don't pick it up maybe on the first watch if you're unfamiliar with the history, but the whole idea that Osage, and this was policy in the US for Native people across the board, were incompetent or were wards or just incapable of handling their own finances and would have to have somebody appointed to do so, or have to like go report to somebody to get access to any money that they would have. And with Osage, that system was called the guardianship program specifically. First time we see Molly, she's asking for money from her guardian for, you know, a feed. It's like, yeah, my mother didn't need that much meat. It's like, I don't need to justify that. But, you know, still having to maintain composure and be nice because then you get your money. It was much, it was a benefit for Osage women and Osage people to be married to their guardian, because then you don't have to go and ask somebody else for permission. You just kind of tell, you know, and Ernest was malleable enough in her eyes, like, if he just wants money, he's gonna have fun, he's not gonna question how I wanna spend mine. So there was a mutual benefit there too. It wasn't just falling in love, it was enjoying each other, but seeing that like, okay, we have something to gain from each other. But yeah, letting that kind of grow into a mutual thing on both parts. And you know, as we were improvising all of these different things, we were getting notes back from Thelma, because Thelma is in hand with Marty as the film is being made, even though she wasn't there in person. She was reviewing footage, and this was filmed, so it would take a few days for her to see the dailies and then report back. But by and large, she kept saying what's working is when the love is real, and we need more of that. So then it kept going that way. And you know, ultimately that's where you kind of see this great betrayal, this grand analogy of colonization and indigenous people. It's like, by and large, people talk about when they come in from the outside how generous we are, you know, how embracing we are, and we are. That's like, you know, you say you like something, we give it to you. It's just kind of, it's protocol. And just seeing how that has just been so taken advantage of, so exploited, so overly exploited. That loving relationship between the two kind of served as a microcosm for the bigger conversation that was happening. And it did just, you know, Ernest insisted until the day he died, whether it was just a guilty conscience, aging, but he would also show up. Like, he moved back to the community after he got out of prison and people knew his presence. He would still show up to things. It's kind of a ghost that haunted the place in some ways. And I mean, the biggest clue to me that there was love in the household, that was true, that we had the responsibility of finding somehow, is that his son Cowboy, even after the trial, maintained a relationship with his dad. He gave him the nickname Dynamite. He would excuse himself from like being with people and say, I gotta go pick up old Dynamite now. But he still had a relationship with his dad until later on. I think there was a rift at some point, and Cowboy didn't go see him as much, but it just kind of shows you that there was something that kept that family together, that made those kids love being together, love having fun, gave them a certain relationship with each other.